circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Thank you, thank you. Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World, and tonight we've got some brilliant guests. We've got the Conservative MP for South Thanet, Craig McKinley. We've got the former Labour advisor, Scarlett Maguire, model and entrepreneur Joe Wood, research fellow for the Bow Group Foundation, which is Benjamin Loughnane, ex-SAS veteran Phil Campion. Looking forward to that one. We've also got a good dose of common sense with Cabbie. He's back tonight. But first, let's go to the news.
Good evening, I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. Our top stories. The Met Police has confirmed a sighting of escaped prisoner Daniel Khalif. He was last seen leaving a lorry near Wandsworth roundabout and walking towards the town centre. They're offering a £20,000 reward for information that leads to his arrest. They also released images of the chef's uniform that he escaped in. Commander Dominic Murphy is head of the Met's Counter-Terrorism Command. He's urging Khalif to give himself up.
My message to Daniel is to give himself up. We will be closing in on you. The public are motivated and trying to find you. We've had excellent support from the media. It's only a matter of time before we find you, and I would appeal to you to call us and we will come and get you, or go into your nearest police station and we will detain you.
Two Channel migrants who attacked police on a French beach have been jailed. 33-year-old Sally Taib Abdullah and 25-year-old Ahmed Omar Saleh Qatar were sentenced to 2 years and 2 months for attempting to arrive in the UK illegally. The pair were part of a violent group who confronted officers near Calais as they tried to stop them launching a small boat. Services have resumed at the Channel Tunnel after explosive experts inspected a suspicious vehicle. Police say the incident was not linked to the search for terror suspect Daniel Khalif. There are still queues at border controls in Folkestone, with holidaymakers being warned to expect longer than usual waits. The Prime Minister says a free trade deal with India is not a given and not top of his agenda ahead of the G20 summit in Delhi. Rishi Sunak is expected to encourage India's PM, Narendra Modi, to end his policy of neutrality to Russia. He'll also urge world leaders to address the war in Ukraine. He's refused to commit to having a trade agreement in place before the next election. And gun salutes have been fired in London to mark the first anniversary of the late Queen's death and the King's accession to the throne. They were held in Hyde Park and at the Tower of London, with soldiers and horses who took part in the state funeral procession returning for gun salutes in the King's honour. Charles and Camilla attended a private service of prayer this morning in the church near Balmoral, where the late Queen worshipped. The King also recorded a special audio message in memory of his mother.
In marking the first anniversary of Her late Majesty's death and my accession, we recall with great affection her long life, devoted service, and all she meant to so many of us. I am deeply grateful, too, for the love and support that has been shown to my wife and myself during this year, as we do our utmost to be of service to you all.
This is GB News across the UK on television, in your car, on digital radio, and on your smart speaker by saying, "Play GB News." Let's get back to Lee Anderson.
Thank you and welcome back to Lee Anderson's Real World. Tonight we've got the brilliant Conservative MP for South Thanet, Craig McKinley, and the former Labour advisor, Scarlett Maguire. She's our left in the corner today. Craig, ex-accountant, ex-tax advisor before he came into Parliament. We see a lot of people on the left, especially the Labour Party, target the wealthy and the rich. I was one of those many years ago that say that they should pay more tax. Now, simple maths, I did some calculations earlier. If you're fortunate enough to earn, say, £1 million a year in this great country of ours, you will pay approximately 450 grand a year in tax and national insurance. If you earn about 20 grand, I think you're paying about 2 grand a year. So that person, that well-paid person, is paying 20 times more income tax and NI than the person earning 20k. Do you think it's right that rich people should pay a higher rate of tax?
Well, it all depends what we think about the dynamism of an economy. You know, wealthy people can be fleet of foot internationally. They can go to other parts of the world, make their investments. I've always been an adherent to the Laffer curve economics. I met Art Laffer just a few years ago. And I think there is a sweet spot for tax because going into business is risky. You might have to put your home on the line, you know, all of these sort of things. So you've got to get that sweet spot of tax. But as you say, earning £1 million a year, not too many of those in the country, but £450,000 a year in tax thereabouts. But it's more than that, because if you've accumulated wealth during your lifetime, you will then face a very, very big wealth tax in form of an IHT charge of 40%. And then there's capital gains taxes on the way and all the rest of it. I mean, we have now got the highest tax take of a government in 70 years, and that doesn't give me any pleasure.
If you've got that sort of wealth, I don't like to bash rich people like I used to. If you've got that sort of wealth, you're obviously spending more in the economy as well, and that's getting taxed as well.
Well, of course, you've got VAT, all of those type of things. You're likely to be buying more things in life, and so your VAT take out of what you've got left out of your post-tax income is going to be spent in the economy quite widely as well. But you put all the taxes together in this country, they're pretty stiff.
I want to bring the left in the corner in. Scarlett, rich people, are they paying their way in this country, or should they pay more?
I actually think the tax system isn't fair at the moment. At the moment, if you're employed, you pay much more tax than if you get capital gains tax. So if you have shares if you're a landlord, if you get money like that, you pay a much lower take of tax than if you're just employed. And I think the tax system should be fairer.
Well, the reason capital gains tax has always been slightly lower generally than income tax is because there's risk associated. If you're in PAYE employment, there's very little risk. But if you have a property or investments or you've started a business, the tax take in capital gains is usually less to reflect the risk. Because if you take that risk or take too much tax, people will not take the risk and they will not invest. It's as simple as that in my view.
So, Scarlett, I mean, I think Craig makes a fair point. People, wealth creators, the richer people do take risks. Like Craig said earlier, people's houses and sometimes a business is on the line. Also sleepless nights, they have staff to pay, etc.
I'm actually just talking about capital gains tax. Okay. I'm talking about when you sell shares and when you get money from shares, and lots of people don't take any risk on shares. I mean, that it's an investment. They already have the money. That you pay less than if you work for a living. You pay as you earn, and I just think it should be fair. I think that if you go out to work, you're in employment, that you should pay the same tax as if it was capital, as if you're living off your shares. I think it's that simple. It's not about hitting the rich. It's about a fair tax system for everybody.
And inheritance tax, would you scrap it, Scarlett?
No, I wouldn't. And I mean, I'm somebody who my children will because I have a house in London, I mean, they will have to sell it because of inheritance tax. Very few people actually have to pay inheritance tax. I think it's fair. I think it's incredible. I think it's fair, and it's never going to go.
On that note then, Scarlett, would it be fair to have an opt-in, opt-out on inheritance tax? Tick a box to the HMRC, say, I agree to pay it, or I don't want to pay it.
Well, then you might as well have an opt-in, opt-out on any tax at all, and obviously people aren't going to pay it. I think inheritance tax only hits you when you're really quite well off, when you've got a lot to do. And so most people in this country do not pay inheritance tax.
Okay. We're going to move on to a different subject, Craig. So you made some comments a few weeks back I think it was in the Express, where you said that illegal migrants coming over the English Channel. Let's be clear, they are illegal migrants in my mind. They're not genuine asylum seekers. I've been to France, I've seen it firsthand. You said they should be put on a Chinook helicopter. I don't know how many people are Chinook olds, but you said they should be put on a Chinook helicopter and sent straight back to France.
We've got to stop this trade. This trade is killing people in the Channel. As you say, I do not believe that these are all genuine refugee seekers. They're young men. They're just in search of a better economic life. I don't blame them for that. But we need to stop this trade. That's what the Rwanda arrangement is meant to try and stop. But it's not working. None of this is working. We've paid France close to £500 million to stop this trade. That's obviously not working. They're stopping a few. They're not stopping them once they actually launch. So I said, we need to do something different. The plan A isn't working. With a meeting with the Home Secretary a while ago, she said, if Rwanda doesn't work, she's got a plan B. So I said, I've got a plan C. It's called Plan Chinook. So as the RNLI boat turns up at Dungeness or somewhere else on the Kent coast, there's a Chinook ready, take them back over to France, a safe country, and this trade would stop overnight. Now, it might be deemed to be a fairly high-octane measure, but frankly, this isn't working what we're doing, is it?
So, Scarlett, we see these illegal migrants crossing the Channel from France, as Craig rightly says, a safe country, a European country. Do you genuinely believe that the majority of these people crossing the Channel are refugees, asylum seekers, or do you think they're economic migrants?
I have no idea. And the problem is the British government has no idea because the asylum system is completely and utterly broken. And what we should be doing is we should have a proper asylum system so that we take in refugees and we send everybody else back, right? And instead, we're paying £6 million a day to put people up in hotels. We're having the stupid barge in Weymouth, which God alone knows how much it's costing, and there's nobody on it. We keep on having these gimmicks that don't work. And actually, if we had a proper asylum system where we took in refugees and sent the other people home, that would be the greatest deterrent that could be.
Would you take a refugee into your house?
I have.
Have you?
I mean, I've got a Yemeni refugee living with me at the moment.
And what's the backstory?
Well, I mean, obviously, Yemen is at war, right?
person.
I mean, he's here. He's trying to get into university. He's doing an English. He does English tests. He's going to get into university. He wants to do coding. He wants to live here. I mean, this is a boy, a young man.
Yeah.
I mean, who is desperate. Yes, I took him in.
Well, finally, we've got a left in the corner.
some agreement.
Actually, a principled lefty on the show was actually standing by a word, so fair play. Craig, I'll let you have the final word on this.
Well, the key is there are 60, 80 million people displaced around the world through economic problems or literal war. There are many hundreds of millions of others that would rather be living somewhere else. And the key is, how many of those can this country take, a very highly populated country? My email inbox is full of people, UK people, seeking housing, seeking help in health and all of those things. And I cannot see that our increase in our population, largely on immigration over the last 20 years of 10 million people, can be accommodated forevermore. We need something different.
I think you're right, Craig, and fair play to Scarlett. Fills my inbox too, this on a daily basis. It's the biggest single topic. And I get emails from people, not just in my constituency, from all over the country, who are fed up of we are a kind, tolerant nation. We always have been. We've welcomed people from all over the world, and Scarlett's proof of that. She's got a Yemeni living with her, but the whole system's been abused. It's broken. As you say, we need to sort it out. It's not fair on the great British taxpayer. But do not go away. We've got the highlight of the show. We've got the yes-no quiz with Craig and Scarlett. Right, guys, you know the rules. Yes, no quiz. No other answer is possible apart from yes or no. Anything else is not acceptable. We're back to the old penis question. That's back on the agenda this week. Craig, can a woman have a penis, yes or no?
No.
Yes.
Scarlett, at least you're answering. That's good. Do you think, Scarlett, that Donald Trump will win the next US election?
No.
Craig?
Yes.
Question 3 to Craig. Should the BBC licence be scrapped?
Yes.
No.
Number 4, Scarlett, should we keep the royal family? No. At least you're answering.
Big yes.
Big yes from Craig. Very patriotic. And final question, should legal immigration be capped, Craig?
Yes.
No.
No. Is there any question you want to come back on, Scarlett, to qualify?
Yeah, I think the thing about women and penises, right? I think it's really important to say that most women are adult females and don't have penises. But what I hate about this question is it picks on this terribly vulnerable group who actually, begin the world as men and don't feel that they're men and become women, right? And it's actually used as a gotcha question. I really hate it.
Okay, great.
No, on that issue, I mean, I find it hard to believe that we're spending so much media time on such a minority issue, really. I mean, I'm a libertarian conservative. My view of life is do as you please, just don't affect anybody else. But the thought of self-identification, taking yourself into women-only spaces, I'm afraid that's where I turn off this argument.
Well, that's 5 straight answers. Thank you, guys. That was absolutely brilliant. But do not go away. Coming up next, we've got Jo Wood, who's a former model, TV personality and entrepreneur, and some real straight talking from pub landlord Adam Brooks. Do not go away.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening, Alex Deacon here with your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. For most of us, the hot spell continues this weekend, but with an increasing chance of seeing some big thunderstorms. And eventually it will turn cooler into next week as this cold front approaches. But for the time being, we're between high pressure and low pressure, and we still have the hot air in place. A balmy evening out there. 1 or 2 very isolated thundery showers across parts of the west, but the vast majority staying dry. We'll turn a little murky in places, a bit misty, particularly around the coasts through the west, and it's going to be a very warm night as well. Temperatures holding up in towns and cities in the mid to high teens. Some spots may not drop below 20 Celsius, so a very warm start to what will be a hot Saturday. The main exception will be the far northwest, where it will be distinctly cooler than today. And as the day goes on, there is an increasing chance of seeing some thunderstorms breaking out across the heart of the country. Now, if we see these downpours, they could cause some problems. There is a Met Office warning in place, but they're going to be very hit and miss. Most places won't see them. Temperatures again getting into the 30s, but as I said, quite a bit cooler across the northwest of Scotland, where there will be more cloud and outbreaks of rain. Still a few thunderstorms rumbling on through the night, and into Sunday, a greater chance of seeing more of these downpours. Parts of northern England, North Wales, maybe into southern Scotland with a chance of thunderstorms, but even further south, we could import some from France. Again, the majority won't see them, and again, for most, another hot one.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, nah, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Now then, my next guest is television personality, a beautiful model, English Rose, absolutely stunning. It's my pleasure to introduce you, Jo Wood, the face of 1972 and the ex-wife of Ronnie Wood in the Rolling Stones. Things have changed over the past 50 years. I say the face of 72. I was 5 years old then, and things have certainly changed over the past 50-odd years, Jo.
Yeah.
A model at that age, the world.
No, 16.
You're 16. Things have changed since then. I mean, what was it like at that? I mean, it was brilliant for music. It was, London was swinging. It was absolutely brilliant in them days. I wish I'd have been a little bit older. It must have been fantastic for me.
Yeah, I love the 70s. I thought the 70s were great.
Yeah.
And it was fun because all I ever wanted to be was a model.
Yeah.
It was just my thing. And so I was a face of 72. Just after I left school, because you could leave school at 16.
So how did you get spotted as a model?
I went to an agency, and then I was doing go-sees, you know, the little young 16-year-old, and I went to see the Sun newspaper, and they picked me as their Face of 72. And I went on a programme called Nationwide.
Yeah, I can remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and they said, what's going to be the look this year, Jo? I thought, oh, the natural look, I said.
Yeah, I think we're going to see that look on our screens, Jo, and yeah, just to show the viewers what it was like back in your day.
It was great.
But fast forward a few years, in the 90s, you tell me that you had a bit of a health scare.
Yeah.
What was all that about?
Early 90s, I was diagnosed with, I was misdiagnosed with Crohn's disease and put on steroids. And after 2 years, I was approached by a herbalist doctor who's no longer with us. And he said, come and see me and let's put your body into detox and let's detox your body. So I went to see him, and he really changed my life forever because I became obsessed. He started talking about all the things that were happening with food, processed food, how it affects your body. In that afternoon, he changed my life forever. And I became this organic girl, and I detoxed my body. I actually got ill again, went into hospital, and they found I had a perforated appendix for 2 years.
So how do you detox? So give me a simple lesson, Jo, how to detox my body, because I've abused my body over the years with too much of that, I think.
No alcohol. To really have a good detox, you've got to have be mainly vegetables and a little bit of protein. So he would say I could have fish. No sugar. That was a huge thing back then to him. And no white flour. And nothing processed at all.
It sounds like a miserable existence.
No, it's great. It's great.
Well, how is it great? No sugar, no beer?
Make wonderful food with vegetables and fish and rice and all organic. And I'm sort of still like that today. I mean, I do eat a bit of meat now because if it's grass-fed. But I have a really good diet.
Yeah.
I do like a tequila now and then.
Oh, you see, well, that gives you a bit of an upper, doesn't it, a tequila? I do like a tequila.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, Jo, and you know, you're a little bit older than me. That would be fair to say, but you look absolutely beautiful, stunning.
Oh, thank you
and
so
I think
much. That's
actually,
really nice.
what you're saying about your changing lifestyle there's the results.
Oh, thank you. Well, I started a little business called Longevity Pill.
Have we got a plug coming?
Yeah,
Come on,
you
then.
have. Longevity Pills, and with my son Jamie, and it's not magic mushrooms, but like mushrooms.
Magic mushrooms, really?
Mushrooms and powders like maca powder for your balancing your hormones, and one called Hichu Wu that the Chinese use, and they believe it gives longevity.
Are these tablets?
Ta-da! For you!
And can I take these with beer?
Yeah, of course you can.
Look, I don't think we could have a conversation, Jo, because when I was doing a bit of research on you about talking about the Rolling Stones, because that, I mean, for me, them and the Beatles, biggest bands, best bands ever. I mean, you were there when they got some of the biggest hits in the 70s, because they had like a bit of a revival in the 70s as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
Absolutely. But what's your favourite Rolling Stones record?
Exile on Main Street.
Yeah?
Yeah, I love Sympathy for the Devil,
yeah.
that song, and Paint It Black.
I've got some people in the background here all nodding their heads of a certain generation.
Yeah, so, I also like some of the rare ones, like Stray Cat Blues, things like that.
Yeah.
But I came along when they first started recording Some Girls.
Yeah.
So, and we were all sort of new girls into the band. There was Jerry Hall, me, and then Patty came a couple of years later. But so Some Girls, to me, has great memories of going to Paris and being in the recording studio for the first time
That must have
ever.
been amazing.
Yeah.
What about the concerts?
I used to love going on tour. They were, up until 81,
Yeah.
those 2 tours I did were completely insane. We stayed up days. These boys would stagger onto stage with a bottle of Jack and goodness knows what else.
Yeah, none of these.
None of these then, no. It was great fun, actually. It was really great fun. And then in 89, Still Wheels tour, Mick changed everything and became more like professional,
Yeah.
and we all had to behave ourselves a bit
So I
better.
suppose you look at the Rolling Stones now, and especially Mick Jagger, as you just spoke about. I don't think he drinks now, does he? Because he must have burnt the candle at both ends for many
Mick
years.
was always very, very good, you know.
Was
he
he?
would always. It was Keith and Ronnie that were the crazy ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you say crazy, too much booze and fags and
anything marching powder.
marching powder, Columbia
Yeah.
marching powder. But look at him now. I mean,
They're still.
I mean, what is Keith? He must be 79. Ronnie 76. Mick 80.
Mick just turned 80, and Keith is 80 in December. Who would have believed that?
He is. I think Keith Richards is a medical miracle. I mean, he is. When you look at the things he's done over the years, I mean, I think he's brilliant. I could listen to him all day long.
I adore Keith. He's absolutely fantastic man, and he's a very
clever
loyal
as well.
friend. He's a loyal friend as well. You
Yeah.
know, he always makes sure he calls me when they're here, because they're here at the moment.
Yeah, they've got a new album coming out, haven't they?
No, you see, I think if they stop, what are they going to do? They need to keep carrying on, and I think, you know, they will.
But who would have thought, 50, 55 years after the Beatles split up, the Rolling Stones are still going. It's incredible.
I know, sadly we lost Charlie,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's mad that they're still going, still making albums. I'm very proud of them.
Yeah, and I think the music, the Rolling Stones, I'm a little bit different to you. I like the really early 60s stuff, the bluesy stuff, some of the covers they did, the Buddy Holly stuff and the and stuff like that. I thought absolutely brilliant. When they went to America, I think they're about 19-year-old, the band were in the 60s, they did some really good stuff. But look, Joe, I could talk to you all day, darling. Thanks for coming on, adding a little bit of glamour to the show.
Don't forget to take
I'm going to
your
take these.
longevity pills.
I'm going to take these tonight with my whiskey, with my
You might
single
have
one.
to double the dose.
Look, that's been absolutely brilliant. Thanks, Joe. Look, do not go away. Coming up next, we've got Adam Brooks, who's going to talk about his fight I think it was last Sunday night, where he finished the fight within 1 minute. Do not go away. Thank you, Joe Wood. That was absolutely brilliant. But joining me next, he was a contender. No more, Adam. You've done it, haven't you? You knocked him out in the first round. Charity boxing match. Tell me all about it.
Well, last year I was introduced to a little girl called Isla Wynn. She was diagnosed with DIPG cancer, which is a very rare sort of childhood cancer. There's no treatment. There's no cure. So basically, when they are diagnosed, Lee, that is it, unfortunately, until they die. Now, they buried her last December, and it upset me so much that the parents asked me, would I raise money for research? Now, they asked me whether I would jump out of a plane, and it's just something I couldn't do. I'm scared of heights. I'm not a great flyer. So I said, look, I'll have a charity boxing match. So I went about arranging that. I found an absolute lunatic that goes around the country fighting. He does bare knuckle, no rules fighting. So I thought, we've got to make this entertaining to earn some money. So I arranged it, and on Sunday I fought at York Hall, and first round I knocked him out.
1 minute. Can we see a clip, please, of Adam with that knockout punch? By the way, I would have slipped that punch, Adam.
Oh, would you? No, look, I'm just so pleased how it went. You know, I even told my boy as we was walking down, if Daddy gets knocked out, go and sit with Mum, it'd be all right.
So, Adam, superb, 1 minute. Abbey's Army, just giving page. We're going to put that at the bottom of the page. How much have you raised so far?
So far, with the gift aid, we're over £40,000, and that goes towards research and support for families of children with DIPG.
Well, on Twitter last week, I opened my big mouth, as usual, and I said to you on Twitter, here's 50 quid. If you win, I'm going to give you 100.
Yeah.
He went and won. Adam, £100 here, fresh out the cash machine.
Fivers, Lee. Come on, give
Go
us
on, have it. Listen, to do what you've done, I know you've worked incredibly hard, you've trained hard, you've been away from your family, you've had to make massive sacrifices, I'm sure. And I know you've harassed some MPs as well to raise this in Parliament. It was actually raised in Parliament yesterday. I think Dame Caroline Dinage actually raised it. And I've sent a question off to the Health Minister.
That, Lee,
but it affects people in my constituency as well, Adam. And you know, sometimes
kids are our future, Lee.
They are.
You know, and to even think about burying a child, no parent should bury their child.
Yeah. Okay.
So you know, I want to try and push and pressure the government in a polite way.
That's good.
To fund it.
Brilliant stuff.
Thank you, Lee.
Listen, do not go away. Next, we've got Left versus Right with Ben Loughnane and Scarlett Maguire. Do not go away.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton, for 2 hours packed full of unfiltered opinions, unique takes, and fiery debates. I guarantee you blockbuster guests and exclusive reporting with no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I think there is a culture of collusion, quite frankly.
And no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio, and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
So joining me now, we've got Ben Loughnane of the Bow Group. What's that, Ben? What's the Bow Group?
It's one of the oldest conservative think tank in the world.
There you go. I should have known that, shouldn't I?
Very
and I've got
right-wing.
Scarlett Maguire, who's back with the left versus right. So we're going to get straight into it, Scarlett. Migration. Do we have a moral duty to control migration in the UK?
Yes, we do have a moral duty to control migration. So migration should only be for people who we want to come here to work and for refugees.
Okay.
Absolutely, we have a moral duty, and at the moment the numbers are far too high. And as you were saying about refugees, the problem is people who pose as refugees very often are not refugees. People coming from Albania, where there hasn't been a war in over 25 years, are not refugees. People who pass through 5 or 6 safe countries before getting to England are not refugees. I think it's frankly ridiculous. What's happening in the Channel at the moment with the migrants is not a refugee crisis. It is economic migration. These people are jumping the queue, and it's harming actual people who go through the system legally and sensibly and do it properly and above board. Those people suffer when people come over the Channel.
So, Scarlett, we've seen a change in tune with the Labour Party over the past couple of weeks. I saw one of their front benchers, I forget who it was, just a few days ago, saying that we should not be importing skilled people on the level we are at the moment. We should actually be training our own people up to be doctors and nurses and surgeons, etc. Hallelujah. I've been saying this for donkey's years. Do you agree?
Well,
are they just electioneering?
No. I mean, I think the Labour Party has always agreed that we should be training up more skilled people. It's appalling that we go to places like the Philippines and take their trained nurses and doctors. You go into a London hospital and it is full of really brilliant Filipino and other South Asian people who've been trained in their own country, and then we've gone and poached them. And of course we should be training them up. There's absolutely no question. It's not that we don't want, that these people aren't any good. It's that actually they come from quite poor countries. Their countries are training them and we're not. You've had 13 years to do it. Don't talk to me about, what the Labour Party isn't doing.
Getting aggressive there, Scarlett, aren't we? Ben, look, I'm sort of in agreement a little bit with Scarlett. I think we're brain draining other countries. I think we're taking the brightest and the best from some of these countries, and then, we give them foreign aid at the same time, thinking, no, the real aid they want is the brightest and the best to stay in those countries, to be doctors, to be nurses, to be carers, or whatever. Is it fair to take the best resources away from these poorer countries?
No, it's not fair at all. But at the same time, we're training up doctors and nurses who then go abroad because of the conditions in this country within the NHS. They find that, when they are highly trained in our system, they make a lot more money if they go somewhere like America or Switzerland or Australia or wherever else. So a lot of the time, we are losing talent we're training and then having to import people from elsewhere in order to sort of plug the gap. So if we just made some quite simple changes within the NHS in terms of pay and working hours and conditions, and we, brought back things like nursing bursaries so people aren't saddled with debt by doing nursing degrees.
But surely, Scarlett, if somebody who's been born in this country goes to the education system, a brilliant education system, goes to university, becomes a doctor or whatever, surely there is a moral obligation without putting some sort of covenant on their employment contract to stay in this country and do 10 years worth of service in the NHS.
Actually, I think there is a moral obligation, and I think you could put a covenant, but amazingly enough, I completely agree with Ben. I mean, the reason people are leaving the NHS is because they feel unable to go on being in it. And why we don't have nursing bursaries, why nurses are then expected to pay back, for the pleasure of training to be a nurse. I mean, we should be encouraging it. It is terrible. And we need to look at why people are leaving. I mean, and it's not just about getting more money, though I think they should get more money. It's actually about the conditions. I mean, you talk to nurses in the NHS, you even talk to consultants, and they say, I'm doing two people's jobs because there aren't enough people anymore. And actually, that's what we need to do in the NHS.
So Ben, would you like to see a situation? I think Scarlett maybe agree with you on this one. Would you like to see a situation where we import no skilled labour for the NHS because it's all here, homegrown, ready-made, and we can train them up, do the degrees, go and have a fantastic career? Would that be the perfect solution?
Absolutely, and I think we have enough people in this country who would be able to train as nurses and doctors and so on and so forth. The problem is that we're losing them. We're training them up, we're putting so much money into training them, and then they go abroad, and we have to replace it. So I think, and it's not just in healthcare, it's in a lot of industries where we are losing people who go abroad and then having to replace them with people coming in. So we've artificially created a need for migration, but that's partly because we've relied on migration for so long. We have immigration to plug shortages rather than investing in getting people to fill those jobs from within the country.
It's a bit like the Premier League for me, because I'm a big football fan, and the Premier League tend to just splash the cash. They go and get the best footballers from all over the world, offer them 200, 300 grand a week. But it doesn't solve the problem in this country when we're trying to win tournaments, get a better England national side. We've got all these young kids going through the academies in this country, young British kids going through. But then you look at the Premiership, and there's probably over 50% of Premiership are foreign players. It don't seem fair, does it?
But also...
It's just a comparison, Scarlett.
No, I completely agree with you. And you look at these young... I mean, it's mostly I know about young men, boys, who are going through these academies, and they just get spat out. I mean, it is... I mean, the football clubs are completely ruthless about picking you up and then dumping you, right? And the number of boys who want to be Premier League footballers. I mean, I think actually for the women, at the moment it's better, and we are teaching skills. But actually, we talk about the NHS, and quite rightly, and we should be training many more doctors. I mean, it's not just that we're losing them, we're not training enough of them, but actually there's skills all the way through Britain that we're not doing. We talk about, wanting to insulate the country, which is what we should be doing. But we don't have the skills for it. We talk about onshore wind farms. We don't have enough skilled people. I mean, we need to skill up Britain desperately. It's not about whether we want or don't want migration.
Yeah.
Actually, we need to skill up Britain, and this has been a problem for decades.
So Ben, I mean, Scarlett's sounding like a Conservative MP on my wing of the party. I mean, it's astounding, isn't it?
This is what Labour believes in. We believe in skills.
I think Labour, the only reason they've taken a more anti-immigration line recently is because the government have dropped the ball on it so massively over the past 13 years. I mean, legal immigration has never been higher than it has been under this government over the past 13 years. And illegal immigration is absolutely out of control as well. So it's an open goal for Keir Starmer to just point at what the government's done wrong and say, look, we wouldn't even go that far. We wouldn't even be that bad. They could take a very liberal immigration approach and still not be as bad as
You
what
just
the current
touched on
government's doing.
illegal immigration there, Ben, and we're having problems housing the illegals that are coming over. I think you've got a problem in your patch.
Well, round here, you've got the Wethersfield RAF base, which they're now using to house migrants. And this was a decision clearly made by a civil servant, not by the Home Secretary, not by anyone in Cabinet. And it's got to the point where people are being put into housing that's not suitable for them, which is not suitable for the community around it. There's no safeguarding for the local residents or people. Former servicemen who would have trained at these bases, I think it's an insult to them that illegal migrants are being put up there. It just shows the decline, firstly, in our military and the immigration system.
Come on then, Scarlett. You want to chip in there, don't you?
I do. I mean, let's call them what they are. They're asylum seekers, and they might or might not be.
They're asylum abusers. We know that.
We don't know.
I know that because I've been to Calais. I've spoken to these young men.
Lee, we don't know, right? What we need is a good asylum system so that instead of having people on a barge in Weatherfield, in all these hotels, right, that we process them properly. Why aren't we doing that? Why are we spending £6 million a day putting people up in hotels and barges and everywhere else instead of actually processing them and sending them home?
Scarlett, I've got to cut you short because we're going to have an influx of common sense after the break. We've got Gary the Cabbie. He's going to take me around town. We're going to speak common sense and he answers all the questions properly, does our Gary? So we're back out on the road with Gary the Cabbie. He is dripping with common sense, is our Gary. Gary, you've been out working all week, working hard in the cab. What's the two main topics this week from your punters?
The main two this week, Lee, is from the Americans. A lot of the Americans are asking why we haven't got corporate punishment over this Lucy Letby terrible situation with the poor babies. And the other one is obviously what happened yesterday at Wandsworth Prison.
You mean capital punishment?
Capital punishment, that's what I mean.
What's the view from our American cousins then, Gary?
Well, they can't believe that, obviously they've got it there, they can't believe that we haven't got it. And, you know, why we haven't got it, why we're keeping these people that are costing us fortunes per week to keep when they've done such terrible crimes.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose in America you've got many states that have still got capital punishment in place. I guess some people would argue it's not a deterrent, and I guess some people would say, so what? And the second, inquiry, if you like, because you're becoming like an agony uncle, Gary, in your cabbie, is the prisoner that's escaped. What's going off there?
Well, someone's not done their job properly, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hey, you know, at the end of the day, this is the trouble. When morale's down in all these top, like the prison, the police and things like that, people start to get lackluster and don't do their job properly.
Yeah, so somebody's took the eye off the ball, I think, there, Gary, haven't they? So I suppose somebody's got some questions to answer somewhere. But look, still to come, we've got On the Pull and Last Orders. We're going to be joined by a larger-than-life character. I won't say that to his face. That's Phil Campion. He's an ex-SAS veteran. Do not go away.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Well, that's last orders. Welcome back to Lee Anderson's Real World. I've got a legend here, actually, SAS veteran, Phil Campion. Great to meet you.
How are you, Lee? You all right? Good to see you.
Yeah, listen, mate, I've watched you on GB News and on the other channels. Absolutely inspiring what you've been through. You joined the army at 17.
Yeah, well, 4 days off my 18th birthday. So.
And by the age of 26, you was in the finest, the elite, the SAS.
Yeah, I was going for it. About 26, I went.
Why did you do that? Are you mad?
No, I think in those days that was to me. I never wanted to go up the ranks.
Yeah.
So all this sort of, I was knocking on the door of becoming a sergeant. I was a full screw. I've been a full screw for a few years, and I thought, look, I want to be the tip of the sword, and I don't want to be sort of like the one holding it. So the route to go in those days was basically, you could either become special forces operator.
Yeah.
Or there wasn't a lot else to do. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So if you wanted to be a soldier and a pure soldier and do soldiering, that was the natural step.
A lot of my colleagues, friends who served in the forces tell me that the SAS, the test, the training, etc., the physical demands are incredibly difficult. But they say to me, Phil, and you'll bear me out on this, that it's actually the mental stuff that were much tougher.
Yeah, I think you've got to be in the right headset. And I talk to a lot of young people about it today, and they ask me questions about it. And yes, you've got to be tough, and yes, you've got to be physically fit, but you've got to want it. If you don't want it, there's no chance, because selection is designed to weed those out that don't want to be there. I can run you over a hill once, but I want to run you over a hill repeatedly for a whole month.
Yeah.
By the end of it, if you don't want to be there, you're going to be able to say, well, enough of this, do you know what I mean?
So tell me, we see some of our veterans from D-Day in the Second World War, 98-year-old blokes full of medals, getting praised by the media, and rightly so, did incredible things all those years ago. But then we fast forward 70 or 80 years and we see some of our soldiers getting a little bit of stick. We've seen it with the Iraq, with the dodgy photos. We see some of the media attacking our current soldiers, our current veterans. What's all that about?
I don't know. For me, there's no way on this earth that people that serve their country to the levels that they do and the jobs that they're asked to carry out, they shouldn't have to then worry on top of all that about what other people are going to think when they come home.
if you do something wrong, then you know you can expect to meet the full weight. But when I think it was the Shiner case, wasn't it? It was all blown out of proportion, all made up even. Do you know what I mean? That was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And people were losing their jobs over that and getting in front of the dock. I mean, luckily, people like Brian Wood eventually turned it over, but not before his career was wrecked. Do you know what I mean? His career was wrecked. His life was in pieces. His personal life nearly fell apart.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So some of these young men, Phil, that go to war in places like Iraq and in Afghanistan, 18, 19-year-old, come from broken homes sometimes, difficult circumstances led them to being in the army, and then all of a sudden on top of that, they're trained to kill, and they have to make split-second decisions. That must be really tough for some of these young men and women.
It's a tough job. And everyone who joins should know, or certainly by the time they finish training, will know what they've got themselves into.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't, again, be impounded by having to think, oh, I've got to look over my shoulder the whole time because somebody might take a photograph of something that I'm doing, misinterpret it, and then send it down the range. Because you don't get a lot of time to make some of these decisions. And they have to be made like that. It's life and death. It's not... it's not have 10 minutes and then a debrief and then let's think about it. It's like, let's do this right now.
So the armed forces is not for everybody, but if there's any young girls or young boys out there watching, what would you say to them if they're considering the armed forces as a career?
I'd say it's an absolutely great career. And don't forget, it's for one guy in the field, fighting, there's another 10 guys behind him, administrating, getting him from A to B, paying him, and all that sort of stuff. So it's not all about pulling the trigger. But what it does do, it gives you a sense of belonging. It gives you somewhere that will offer you a career for 22 years from the day off the bat.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not many places give you that, is there, nowadays?
No,
do you know what I mean?
no,
it's going to pay you on time regularly. You ain't going to have to chase your boss for your dough. Do you know what I mean? You're going to get paid. And so for me, it's a great option. A great, great option.
And what about the friendships that you formed whilst you was in the forces? Surely you're still in contact with some of
my friends are friends for life. They're not, I consider them family even. It's a step more than friendship. It's not just an acquaintance, And some of the people that I've served with, obviously, we've been through a lot together. So, you grow very tight.
Yeah, listen, that's been fantastic talking to you, Phil, but we're behind the bar for a reason. We've got a stunning lady in the background, an English rose, as I described it. Come on in, Joe. We've got Joe Wood. Look at this lady here. And we're going to do On the Pull. Go for it, guys.
Are we going for it?
Yeah, just go.
There's no race here, is there?
There's no race. It's not about... Oh, I think you've done this before.
I've never done... I've watched a few being done in my life before, but I've never actually...
look at that. Yep, that's it. The worst...
Here it goes.
And then bang it on the bar.
Look at that.
I think...
Head like Humpty Dumpty, this one.
Put it on the bar, please, Phil. There's no tapping, no cheating. Get that on there. Joe, yeah.
Oh, my God.
That's a shocker. I think this is...
At least you filled yours up.
I think, actually, this is a world record. These are... We've seen some shocking pints over the past 2 or 3 weeks.
I think you've done me there.
Phil.
Oh, look at that.
Be a man. What are you going to mark Joe out of 10?
I'm going to give you a 9 out of 10. All right?
Oh,
9 because you have to beat that one. You have to beat that one.
And Joe?
I'll give you 8.
Go on then. All right, then. I'll settle for an 8 all day. I'll settle for an 8.
I'm going to be honest. Last time I saw 2 pints poured like that, they both got 0. It's an absolute shock. I think you're both cheating. They're the worst.
Look, give it 5 minutes. If we've got long enough on air tonight, I'm sure we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, but there's no way that the landlady here or the landlord will be able to sell them. They're shocking. Sorry, Phil. Sorry, Joe.
I wouldn't get a job here then.
Shocker. I tell you what, if your boys from the SAS come in and you poured them that, you'd be leaving.
They'd be upset. They'd probably go somewhere else.
But listen, that's On the Pull. This is a brilliant part of the show. A massive thanks to Phil. Massive thanks to Joe. Come here, Joe. Shake my hand, darling. Okay. Phil, absolutely brilliant, mate. Thanks, Joe. Absolutely brilliant. Thanks for watching Lee Anderson's Real World. Been an absolutely brilliant show, and thanks to all my fantastic guests. But next week it's going to be a belter. We've got the legendary comedian Jim Davison. Also got Stephen Hammond, who's the MP for Wimbledon. Got Barry Gardner, he's a regular now on the show. He's the MP for Brent North, and former Brexit MEP Belinda de Lucy. And Mike Porky Parry. Why do they call him Porky? I don't know. Good night and stay safe.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening, Alex Deacon here with your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. For most of us, the hot spell continues this weekend, but with an increasing chance of seeing some big thunderstorms. And eventually it will turn cooler into next week as this cold front
approaches. But for the time being, we're between high pressure and low pressure, and we still have the hot air in place. A balmy evening out there. One or two very isolated thundery showers across parts of the west, but the vast majority staying dry. We'll turn a little murky in places, a bit misty, particularly around the coasts through the west, and it's going to be a very warm night as well. Temperatures holding up in towns and cities in the mid to high teens. Some spots may not drop below 20 Celsius, so a very warm start to what will be a hot Saturday. The main exception will be the far northwest, where it will be distinctly cooler than today. And as the day goes on, there is an increasing chance of seeing some thunderstorms breaking out across the heart of the country. Now, if we see these downpours, they could cause some problems. There is a Met Office warning in place, but they're going to be very hit and miss. Most places won't see them. Temperatures are...
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good evening, team. It is 8 o'clock and I am Lawrence Fox and I am back from the global boiling, and there's air conditioning in this room, which is great. Coming up on the show this evening, I will be discussing the important topic of children's mental health and if we are over-diagnosing and over-medicating our children before sending them off to the Tavistock to get their bits lopped off. I'll be asking you at home and my wonderful panel the important questions. As Christian Concern highlighted the case of a 19-year-old girl who the NHS are seeking to withdraw treatment from, is the state encroaching too much into family life? Have the state replaced mum and dad? I'm debating this and more with my panel. That's all coming up after the news and the latest headlines with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Lawrence. Good evening. Our top stories. The Met Police has confirmed a sighting of escaped prisoner Daniel Khalif. He was last seen leaving